Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Biochemistry Simplified. I'm on the first class of the single gene disorders or Mendelian disorders known as the autosomal dominant disorder. We saw that the pattern was the disease or the disorder will also affect the autosomes as much as the sex chromosomes. So for this class, we are going to discuss the disorders which affect the autosomes, but then the allele for the disease is dominant. So in this class, an example shows the dominant allele. We said it is the one which has the capital. In this class, we have several examples of the diseases which fall under this class. So the capital, it will go with the letter, the first letter which starts with the disease for any of those diseases which we are going to see falling under this class. So the capital letter will always represent the disease allele, and then the same letter but then the lowercase will represent the allele for healthiness, such that if you have the genotypes where you have the all capital homozygous dominant, such individuals are affected. In the case of heterozygous, where an individual has the capital and the small letter, or we talk about a genotype being heterozygous, and since the allele for the disease is the dominant one, and as we follow the law of dominance of Mendel, these individuals will show that they are affected. Only the unaffected ones are the ones which will have both allele, recessive allele represented, the homozygous recessive. They are the ones which will be unaffected. They will be healthy. But heterozygous, since the disease for the allele is dominant, it will suppress the allele, the recessive allele for healthiness, and those individuals will show affected together with the ones who are homozygous dominant. This shows an example of a couple, a mother who is unaffected. It means the mother is both small letter, homozygous recessive. Affected father, but what you can see there is the father is a carrier, because one allele for healthiness, one allele for the disease. So at that point, make sure the allele for the disease is the one which is dominant. The allele for the recessive one, the one for the healthiness, is the recessive, the small one. So in this case, you can see one of them is colored blue completely, the other one has some whitish. So it shows the father is a carrier. Then the possibility of the F1s will have affected son, because as much as the son appear heterozygous, the dominant allele for the disease is in the son or in that child, so it will show that the child is affected. An affected daughter, because the possibility is the allele for healthiness in the dad, the allele for healthiness in the mother will show that the child, by possibility or the probability will show that the child will appear unaffected. Then we have another unaffected child, and lastly we have affected child, the last one, because the allele for the disease which is dominant is from the father, and the mother has the allele for healthiness. So two of the children will appear affected, 50% affected, 50% unaffected. So when a question comes for autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive disorders, kindly don't put the sex chromosomes XY and XXS. Just go straight and understand the dominant allele for the disease. Is it the dominant one? The recessive allele, is it the one for the disease? Don't put the sex chromosomes. X and Y's do not apply here. Just put the allele which is responsible for the disease. It is dominant at the point of autosomal dominant. For the recessive one, we are going to say that the allele for the same applies here. You can say affected son, normal daughter, affected daughter, normal son. So we have 50-50 affected and unaffected in the case where the mother is healthy and the father is a carrier, meaning still affected. A bit of the characteristics of the diseases which are found in this group, they are manifested in heterozygous state. It means in heterozygous state, as much as the allele for the disease is dominant, it will suppress or it will mask the allele which is recessive for healthiness. So those individuals will show affected. But one parent is usually affected. It can't be that none of them is affected or both of them are affected. Then in that case, it is not going to bring the real picture. So males and females, they have equal ratio of both transmitting the disease, and if affected person, be it the father or the mother, marries an affected one, every child has a chance. 1 out of 2 of the children getting affected. It means 50% chance of getting affected. Example of neurofibromatosis, one of the autosomal dominant disorders. It talks much about there is variability in expressivity of those autosomal dominant disorders. They express their symptoms in different degree for different individuals. So expressivity of the disease varies. This table shows example of autosomal dominant disorders. Remember, the allele for disease is dominant. So we have the achondroplasia, which we are going to see the example how it shows phenotypically in the individuals, but then it shows the system affected and the disorder. So when each one of these can be set, giving an example, and you describe a family where the father was a carrier, the mother was not affected, or the mother was a carrier and the father was not affected, but then you have to know if it falls under autosomal dominant disorders, autosomal recessive disorders, or X-linked. Then you use a Punnett square to describe well the situation or the statement which has been given for you to tell much about the offsprings, how many of the offsprings could inherit the disease, and lastly, it will help you much to understand how these Mendelian disorders are transferred or are transmitted down to the offsprings from the parents. So this is how achondroplasia looks like. Remember, the disease allele for the disease is dominant. It is always expressed in a heterozygous state. Allele for the healthiness is recessive. So the dominant allele suppresses the recessive allele, and the individuals in heterozygous state will show that they are affected together with the ones who are homozygous dominant.